அனைவருக்கும் இனிய மதிய வணக்கம். உலக முதலீட்டாளர்கள் மாநாடு 2024 அமர்வில் குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள் துறை சார்பில் அமைக்கப்பட்டிருக்கும் புத்தொழில் முதலீட்டாளர்கள் சந்திப்பு நிகழ்விற்கு வருகை புரிந்திருக்கும் உங்கள் அனைவரையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்கிறோம். நிகழ்வினை சிறப்பிக்க வருகை புரிந்திருக்கும் மாண்புமிகு குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள் துறை அமைச்சர் அவர்கள், குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள் துறை செயலாளர் அவர்கள், சிட்கோ நிர்வாக இயக்குனர் அவர்கள் அனைவரையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்கிறோம். நிர்வாக இயக்குனர் டிக் திரு ஹன்ஸ்ராஜ் வர்மா ஐஏஎஸ் அவர்களையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்கிறோம். தற்போது புத்தாக்க சிந்தனை, சிறந்த வணிக மாதிரி, நிறுவனங்களை விரிவுபடுத்தும் உத்திகள் போன்ற சிறப்பான செயல்பாடுகளால் தமிழ்நாடு அரசு மற்றும் பல்வேறு தனியார் துணிகர முதலீட்டு நிறுவனங்களிடமிருந்து முதலீடு திரட்டியுள்ள ஸ்டார்ட் அப் நிறுவனங்களை சிறப்பு செய்யும் தருணம் இது. அவர்களை சிறப்பு செய்ய மாண்புமிகு குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில்துறை அமைச்சர் அவர்களை அன்போடு மேடைக்கு அழைக்கின்றோம். உடன் குறு சிறு மற்றும் நடுத்தர தொழில் நிறுவனங்கள் துறை செயலாளர் அவர்களையும் தமிழ்நாடு புத்தொழில் மற்றும் புத்தாக்க இயக்கத்தின் இயக்குனர் அவர்களையும் அன்போடு மேடைக்கு அழைக்கின்றோம். 15 கோடி ரூபாய் முதலீடு திரட்டியுள்ள அக்ரோஸ்பிரட்டின் டெக் சொல்யூஷன்ஸ் நிறுவனத்தின் திரு ஜாபி அவர்களை அன்போடு மேடைக்கு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
It is my privilege and honor to welcome Mr. Mark Wenzel, founder and president of Startup Genome, to the stage. Mark Wenzel envisions a knowledge network that empowers policymakers globally to foster startup success and economic impact. I feel equally privileged to welcome Mr. Ravi Narayan, Senior Advisor at Startup Genome. He is a pioneer in the venture catalyst and startup accelerator domain, bringing over 3 decades of multifaceted experience in entrepreneurship, mentorship, and strategic investment. I welcome Mr. Mark Wenzel and Mr. Ravi Narayan to the dais to throw light on why Tamil Nadu is the best state for startup investments.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's a privilege to be here with you all today. On behalf of Startup Genome, thank you so much for having us. So just for context, if we take exits as a proxy for value creation in the global startup ecosystem, what we've been struggling with the last couple of decades is that the vast majority of value is still captured by a select few places in the world. You can see that Silicon Valley, London, New York, a few places have notoriously been capturing the vast majority of that value. This is why we created Startup Genome. It was always our mission to level the playing field and to build a global community of ecosystem builders, government leaders that all work together in order for us to really create a more equitable global startup ecosystem. Startup Genome today is the world-leading policy innovation and advisory firm. We've been working with around 150 different entities across 50 countries to date. Here you can see a quick snapshot of all of the recent government clients that we've been working with. I won't go into the details. I just wanted to mention a few examples. Most recently, I spent most of my time in the United Arab Emirates. I've been working very closely with government leaders in the United States, in Detroit, for example, but also in my home country in Germany. We've been advising the largest state on innovation policy, industrial policy, as it relates to startup ecosystem development. And most recently, most of my time I spent in Tokyo in Japan. Before we jump into the details, I just wanted to mention a few key principles of ecosystem development, some of the learnings that we captured. And some of the experts in the crowd will have seen this before, but I just wanted to highlight this again to bring everyone on the same page. So governments tend to do a best job when they support ecosystem development, and investors do that too if we're all entrepreneur-centric. Oftentimes we see that it's not really the case, so we mention this every time. What we see in the data as well is that if you focus really on community building, bringing together at the local level and at the global level, investors, entrepreneurs, policymakers to learn from each other, this is where we can really accelerate the growth of our ecosystems. What we defined at the time is our ecosystem lifecycle model, which really puts ecosystems into 4 different phases. And what we understood is that policies and programs might make sense for one government, for one ecosystem, but another ecosystem might be at an entirely different point in their journey, and then it makes less of a sense. So it's really important to understand where are we in our development journey and what kind of policies and what kind of programs have the highest return on investment for our government and for our ecosystem today. Don't copy Silicon Valley. You've heard this many, many times already. Sometimes in the past, we've seen regions around the world really try to copy the success, the secrets of Silicon Valley, only to fail, because really what you need to do instead is to stay close to who you are, identify your own core strengths, your value proposition, and then from that intrinsic strength and motivation, develop your ecosystem. The last point, perhaps the most important point, is that government policy, at least as far as startup ecosystem development is concerned, typically flows through the private sector. I'll have one or two examples afterwards, but it's really important to mention that the private players in the startup ecosystem, they understand best what they need. The entrepreneurs know what they need, the investors know what they need. So as a government, support the private sector and don't step in trying to pretend that you're a private actor of the ecosystem. Once a year, you might have seen this, we publish the Global Startup Ecosystem Report. It's the most comprehensive data set on startup ecosystems in the world. We're looking at over 300 leading ecosystems to this date, and we see around 300,000 downloaders, readers of this research report every year. One of the key findings in this last publication that really struck our team was that India's startup ecosystem, when we look underneath, because once a year we're ranking startup ecosystems, you will see that in our global ranking, India's startup ecosystems have been growing the fastest among all of the different ecosystems that are part of our database. Here you can see it. So at this point, we have already 6 ecosystems that are part of the top 100 in our global startup ecosystem ranking, which is an incredible feat. And you see that Tamil Nadu really has been growing extremely fast in the last couple of years. It's one of the ecosystems that has been highlighted by our team for its tremendous growth, and this is why I'm very privileged and honored to speak to you about the Tamil Nadu ecosystem today. So when we zoom into Tamil Nadu, as you're seeing, in 2021, we ranked the ecosystem at rank 108, in 22, 85, in 23, 78. At this growth trajectory, it is perfectly possible for Tamil Nadu to break into the global top 20 startup ecosystems by 2030. And I really don't want to say this lightly, because so many governments complain to me, why are we not growing? Why are we not going up in the ranking? The truth is, everyone is growing very fast. Governments everywhere are aggressively investing a lot of funding into the startup ecosystem. And the question always is, are we growing faster or slower than our competitors? And here in Tamil Nadu, it's really fascinating and amazing to see that you're growing faster than your peers, your competitors, and this is likely to continue in the future. When we zoom into the ranking, as a proxy for value creation, again, the sum of exits and funding rounds, we call that the ecosystem value. You're seeing that Tamil Nadu, over the course of the last 3 years alone, nearly tripled its ecosystem value to around $11 billion over the last 2-3 years, which is unheard of in our ecosystem ranking. Yet, when I attend this conference and when I hear some of the other distinguished speakers, our team and I, we really think this growth, this trajectory is only starting to pick up right here in Tamil Nadu. And you've seen some of the statistics that I will show you in a second, because some of the amazing things that you have here is some of the fastest growth in India as far as your economy is concerned, the highest patent creation, and then also you see 400,000 annual university graduates, so an incredible amount of educated talent that is here in the ecosystem. And these are really some of the key ingredients when we think about and when we talk about what makes a successful global startup ecosystem. It's really these key ingredients. When I looked into this macroeconomic statistics, I wanted to dive into our data set and see to what extent I can verify if that is true. And as a proxy for coding talent, we oftentimes look into GitHub, a global repository of coders and a place for software engineers to come and to share their code. And it's been amazing to see that Tamil Nadu really has an abundance of coding talent. There is more talent here in the ecosystem than there is in Taipei City, in Singapore, or even in Delhi when we think of raw coding talent. When we try to look and we try to proxy what are the next couple of years going to look like for the ecosystem, we look at what we call early stage funding. We might have different definitions in mind when we think of early stage funding. For us, this is seed funding and Series A funding. So some people have an earlier definition of early stage funding, but this is just a proxy for us to understand what is the next generation of founders in the ecosystem looking like? And we can see that between 2018 and 22, the amount that early stage funding for Tamil Nadu increased is about or almost 80%, which is incredible as well. So because we're working with many governments and ecosystems around the world, I just wanted to bring 3 very short considerations before we jump into the conversation. The first one is, it's very clear in our data set and very clear on what I find on Tamil Nadu, that there is an opportunity to leverage the upcoming industrial revolution. So here you can see in our database over the course of the last couple of years, when we compare traditional tech, software as a service, and tech-enabled businesses to deep tech-related services and deep tech-related products, we're seeing that the share of investment at a global level continues to increase in deep tech business. And that is true for the deal count, so the amount of investments that are made into deep tech, but it's also true for deal volume, so the amount of money that is poured into deep tech continues to grow in terms of proportion, in terms of importance in comparison to tech. When we zoom into that perspective, here are a few subsectors or verticals of innovation that we'd like to take a look at. And here on the y-axis, you can see the growth rate globally of Series A investments. And you can also see on the x-axis the exit value growth that we're seeing in ecosystems all over the world combined. And here, one of the key areas that has to stand out as far as our growth subsectors are concerned is advanced manufacturing and robotics. You see that there is the fastest Series A growth rate for advanced manufacturing and robotics, and you can also see that the size of the bubble is still comparatively small, and the size of the bubble represents the current net value of the subsector. So really it is one big opportunity for the state of Tamil Nadu to zero in on. I heard this a few times already, but I still ask the question, why is that true? Well, because you have all of the customers you could imagine for AMR and robotics businesses here in Tamil Nadu, right? As a proportion to GDP, 22% of your GDP is because of your strong manufacturing base here in the state. So putting these trends together with what you have here in the ecosystem, it's got to be a key opportunity for Tamil Nadu. The second key point, for any globally successful startup ecosystem, how can we work together to even further strengthen the private investor community? I'll just introduce the next slide. There it is. So just in terms of considerations for when we think of improving the state of the private investor community, you always want to keep in mind, what do your largest rounds look like as far as Series Seed and Series A are concerned? And are they large enough in order for our best entrepreneurs to really grow globally? But then you also want to make sure that there are many rounds in the ecosystem, right? You want to have, as a proportion of your startups in the ecosystem, as many seed-funded startups as possible. And from these seed-funded startups, you want to have the highest possible proportion of those companies that then get Series A funding. And as government, monitoring these metrics has been extremely crucial in order for us to understand, where do we need to intervene as government? Where do we need to improve? And then on the funding side, just one important consideration, because we are seeing dozens and dozens of governments focusing exclusively on injecting grant money into the ecosystem. But when you look at these grants, oftentimes they're a capital patch and they're not really supporting the growth and the experience building in the ecosystem. So here on this scatter plot, you can see tons of different dots that represent ecosystems and their share of grant-funded startups, and to what extent these ecosystems then are able to produce exits. And when you compare this chart to the next chart, where we have proportion of seed funding startups, you can see that the higher the share of seed-funded startups in the ecosystem, really the higher the likelihood and the performance for us to create fast growth and exits in an ecosystem. So when you think of grants versus private sector capital injection or support, really pick the latter, at least to a greater extent, because it builds experience and it builds mentorship in the ecosystem. So the last point I wanted to mention, when we compare top 10 startup ecosystems in the world with ecosystems that are ranked 100, 120, 140, really a key question for Tamil Nadu for the next decade is how can you produce more scale-ups in the proportion of the startups that are in your ecosystem, right? Because the best ecosystems in the world, they create a high proportion of scale-ups. And these are fast-growing startups that then make it to a $50 to $100 million valuation. How do you do that? I'll just talk about these slides like that. So what we're seeing typically is that governments around the world and private sector, we invest 90% of our capital, of our resources into supporting startups at the earlier stage. However, around 10% of your most successful startups in the ecosystem generate around 80% of the economic impact. So really, I challenge us together to invest more time, more efforts, more resources into supporting the best of the best companies in really being more successful, faster, building more global brands, more global category leaders in order for the ecosystem to not only be built from the bottom with our incubation spaces, seed funding, etc., but also build it from the top and create more Zohos, more Kiss Flows, more of these very successful companies in the ecosystem, because they then become what we call pilot companies, or mafia companies, as we call it in Germany, where then many more companies emerge from these very successful companies. So support your ecosystem also by building scale, supporting you in any way possible. And starting in 2024, we're showcasing Tamil Nadu as a startup ecosystem in our global startup ecosystem report, sharing our visibility of several hundreds of thousands of readers with your community. Thank you so much. And with that, I introduce our senior advisor, Mr. Ravi Narayan, for this conversation that the two of us are having right now.
Thanks, Mark. Dignitaries, thank you very much for inviting Startup Genome today. When Shiva asked us to evaluate the Tamil Nadu startup ecosystem, we didn't know what kind of surprises that we would be encountering. So obviously, as you can see, not only does the usual cities, which is Bangalore, Delhi and Mumbai, feature, but right behind that, we also see that Tamil Nadu is doing some fantastic work which has not been presented to the world. And this is all based on data that we have found. So was that a surprise to all of you as well? Yeah, it's a pleasant surprise. That's the good news. The challenge that are accelerated. So you saw the 3 recommendations that Mark presented. I will speak about them in a minute. But before that, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood what we mean by an ecosystem. An ecosystem for us is not just a bunch of startups. There are incubators in IIT Madras. There's a 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 startups. It is not just that. It's not just the investors. It is a collection of the government and their policies and their work. It is the investors, be it the angel investors, the pre-seed investors, the VCs, the PEs in the city, in the state. It is also the corporations, as in the people who actually consume these innovations coming from these startups. It is the research labs that are spread across the state. It is also the educational institutions. All of this put together is what we call an ecosystem. And from that standpoint, what Tamil Nadu has accomplished is, very, very commendable. Now, having said that, we also heard yesterday that the GDP of Tamil Nadu is number 2 as far as the states are concerned. And the biggest contributor to that is the industry, the manufacturing sector is contributing enormously to that GDP numbers. A lot of times when we speak about startups, we talk about how to build more accelerators, incubators, how do we fund them. Now that's all very legitimate. That's how good startups are built. But in my mind, that is creating better and better supply of startups. But what I feel we often forget is the demand side of innovation. Who needs this innovation? Why is this innovation important? Innovations are important because the world markets are changing rapidly. As you can imagine, from the time before COVID to after the COVID hit, how much of digitization happened so quickly. Had everybody said, I will just wait and go back to what I was doing pre-COVID, those organizations would have failed. Large companies, including the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 in the US, only about half of them will survive if they don't continue to innovate very, very fast. And usually, when you have these very large organizations wanting to innovate, they have to actually rely upon the nimbleness, the creativity, the discontinuous thinking that the startups bring to the table. So for them, this is a very important element of their innovation story. In Tamil Nadu, manufacturing sector being so prevalent all the way from Coimbatore to Salem to Chennai, Kalpakkam, all over the place. There's so much going on, be it auto ancillaries or textiles or various others. I think it's an opportunity for them to think about how to bring in advanced manufacturing, how to bring in robotics, how to beat on innovation. And I think that's the key that I would take away, from the first point. Mark? On the first one about the AMR and all that, I think that's what. And then also, there is also the differentiation that we put between startups and MSMEs. We feel that they are completely different sectors. The bank treat them as separate sectors. But I think the line is blurring to where MSMEs can be very, very innovative. They don't necessarily have to be just profitable and sustain and very big capital intensive. They can also be very, very nimble. They can also be less capital intensive and be very innovative as well. So how do we actually think about bringing these sectors together and creating that nimbleness within the economy?
For AMR to be introduced here, to be applied here, because in the end, startups need customers the most, more than they need venture investment. So it is really a strong argument for the state.
And also, if you look at Munich in Germany, Munich has a fantastic B2B ecosystem that has been pretty much put together by BMW. BMW has an enormous presence there, and BMW wants to create themselves as the next generation car company, and that's who has actually promoted a whole lot of things, all the way from IoT to energy efficiencies to EV to all these things. All those startups are making a beeline to this city to make that ecosystem happen. So something to learn from. The second, actually, let me shift to the third point. So Mark spoke about the hyper-growth program. The way we look at it is, Chennai has been the SaaS bhumi. A lot of SaaS companies have done extremely well. Zoho and all the Zoho's children have done so well and given that name to Chennai. There are lots of very, very good companies that are there, and Freshworks is a well-known company in this matter. So what we feel is, while we as Startup Genome can help with government policy, we can help with thinking about creating a funding strategy and so on and so forth. One of the most direct approaches for us to actually build the ecosystem and take it quickly up the ranking is to take some of the best startups from each of these ecosystem and make them into global category leaders. Automatically, all the parameters upon which we evaluate these ecosystems start scoring very, very high. So for example, today we are running this program in Quebec, which is the hyper-growth program. So we have the best program as best startups in the Quebec province that are part of the program. We provide them the impetus, the connections into customers and the mentoring to become global leaders. They don't need to figure it out along the way organically. They figure it out inorganically. Similarly, we're starting one in Tokyo, one in Abu Dhabi, and soon in Bangalore. So the idea is to work with the very, very advanced companies and to make them global leaders. So they can say, I actually started from Tamil Nadu, I started from Chennai, which we don't have any of today, right? So this is the hypergrowth program that we've been working on across the world. And we're hoping that at some point in time, even Tamil Nadu would want to explore this possibility, because I think that's one sure way of creating role models, one sure way of creating a psychological confidence amongst the people, saying, if that guy who went to school with me, he has built a unicorn, I can do the same. And suddenly the entire ecosystem matures and becomes more confident within a very short period of time. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, I've been working with quite a few ecosystems that have introduced such scale-up programs for the best companies. And what it does achieve for the ecosystem as well is that you provide programs and institutional reasons for them to stay where they were born, where they were able to grow, instead of losing them to Bangalore, instead of losing them to New York, to San Francisco, right? So in Germany, it's a big factor as well, and in many other places, we're oftentimes losing some of the best companies. And if you can introduce specific programs and give them reasons and build a culture around scaling up, we can build global champions, global brands right here in Tamil Nadu. You don't have to go anywhere else in the world. This makes a huge difference for the state.
Yeah, and then the second point that Mark made about investors, I think it's very important. I find that most Indian cities have very very good set of people who can actually invest in companies. The most of the investors actually go in and do it in real estate, which is very well known, or they will try to go into something that is much more traditional. Introducing them to the fact that this is also an asset class. Startups is an asset class. Yes, it is higher risk, but it's also higher reward, and it's also a form of giving back. So I was in Coimbatore yesterday, and a lot of industrialists take on their family businesses, run it for a while. When they reach their 50s, 60s, they turn it over to their children. They start doing hospitals, they start doing education institutions. I feel the same way, like you're giving back by putting these kinds of institutions together. It's also important to actually invest in startups, because that provides that vibrancy, that the energy into that city, into that community in a much larger way than any investment can make happen. Because today's relevancy is dependent on innovation, and it's not dependent on other things. So to creating that base of angel investors, creating those pre-series A investors is absolutely essential. We can bring in the VCs to come visit us every once in a while, but unless they really see deal flow coming from Chennai, they don't make those kinds of trips just because it is a great place. I mean, they are driven by deal flow. If not enough deals are coming because of early investments have happened, these companies have come to a certain level of attraction, I think it's very hard. So to create that base of investments, I think is very important. I know Shiva has been doing this kind of work in tier 2, tier 3 cities, but to actually do this on a much, much larger magnitude is absolutely important, right?
And the truth also is, a first-time entrepreneur is less likely to be successful than a second-time, third-time entrepreneur, right? So continuing to give them opportunities as an ecosystem to fail, to try again, to eventually succeed. There are hundreds or thousands of stories like this where entrepreneurs that keep trying, that also get the confidence and the opportunities from their ecosystem, they're creating big success, but only after a few learnings that all of us have to go through in order to really create a global market leader. So I recommend, please support the entrepreneurs, especially if they failed once or twice already, because they are the ones that are really the most ambitious and the most hungry to create a success for themselves and for their community.
Great. So those are some recommendations. I'm sure we will talk more as we go along, but I think I just wanted us to, go a little deeper into what Mark has put together as a very succinct, summary of where Tamil Nadu is today, where Tamil Nadu can go in the future. But I think there's lots of opportunities to think through and, do a lot more here. And this is just the beginning. Thank you.
And from our side as well, hearty congratulations to all of what you've achieved already. Startup TN, from experience, is doing visionary work to support the development of the ecosystem. We see very innovative entrepreneurs, a very active investor community. So this is just the beginning. Continue to create success for yourself, and we'll see each other in the top 20 in a couple of years from now.
That was an engaging and enlightening discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mark, and thank you, Mr. Ravi Narayan. Now I kindly request our Honorable Minister for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises of Tamil Nadu and Secretary to the Government MSME Department to join us on the stage and honor our esteemed speakers.
Dear all, it's my absolute honor to welcome a visionary, a leader, and a beacon of innovation in the healthcare industry, Dr. Velumani. He is the brilliant mind behind the groundbreaking success of ThyroCare. After his exit from ThyroCare, he has taken an active role as a lead investor in Startup Tamila, the first television reality show for startup investments in Tamil. I now humbly request Dr. Velumani sir to take over the stage.
வணக்கம். இங்கே எல்லாம் மேடையில் அன்பளிப்பும் பரிசும் பாராட்டுதல்களும் வாங்கிட்டு போனவங்களுக்கு இன்னொரு கைதட்டலான்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஆனால் ஒன்று, நிதி திரட்டுவது வெற்றி அல்ல, நிதியை திரட்டாமல் வெற்றி பெறுவதுதான் முக்கியம். ஸோ இங்கே யாராவது நிதி இல்லாமல் தொழில் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாங்கன்னா அவருக்கு ஒரு பலத்த கைதட்டல். ஸோ பிறந்தது அப்பநாயக்கம்பட்டி, புதூர், சூலூர் தாலுகா. அப்படி இருந்தும் ஒரு பெரிய பிஸ்னஸ் சாதனையை செய்ய முடிஞ்சது. ஒரு 500 ரூபாயை கொண்டுட்டு 1982 மும்பையில் போய் இறங்கினேன். 40 வருடம் பிஸ்னஸ் பண்ணினேன். ஒரு 5000 கோடிக்கு அந்த பிஸ்னஸ் எக்ஸிட் பண்ணியிருக்கிறேன். அந்த ஒரு தகுதியில் தான் இங்கே நான் உங்களிடம் பேச ஆசைப்படுகிறேன். ஸ்டார்ட் அப் தமிழா என்ற ஒரு ரியாலிட்டி ஷோவில் நானும் ஒரு இன்வெஸ்டராக இருக்கிறதாக ஒத்துருக்கிறேன். உங்களுக்கு இது ஒரு திறவுகோலாக இருக்கும் உங்களுடைய வாழ்க்கை பயணத்திற்கு. வாழ்க்கையில் என்னென்ன செய்யணும்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நூற்றுக்கணக்கான விஷயங்கள் இருக்கும். அது எல்லோரும் சொல்லிக் கொடுப்பாங்க. என்ன செய்யக்கூடாதுன்னு ஒரு டஜன் தான் இருக்கும். அதை நான் சொல்லிக் கொடுப்பேன். அதனால் ஸ்டார்ட் அப் தமிழா நிகழ்ச்சிக்கு நீங்கள் லாகின் பண்ணுங்கள், கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணுங்கள், ஜெயிங்க. தமிழ்நாடு தமிழன் வாழ வந்தவன் அல்ல, ஆள வந்தவன். இது உலகத்துக்கே புரிய வைக்கணும். ஸோ எங்கெங்கெல்லாம் சேலஞ்சஸ் இருக்குது, என்னென்னலாம் பிஸ்னஸுக்கு தேவை இருக்குது. ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட் வேணும். அது சர்வீஸ் ஆகட்டும், ப்ராடக்ட் ஆகட்டும். கஸ்டமருக்கு என்ன வேணுமோ அதுதான் விற்கும். வாட் யூ திங்க் த கஸ்டமர் வாண்ட்ஸ் மே நாட் பி த சேம் திங். ஸோ நிறைய டைம் ஃபெயில் ஆகிற காரணமே நாம் ஒன்று பண்ணியிருப்போம், கஸ்டமருக்கு ஒன்று வேண்டி இருக்கும், சீக்கிரம் அதை இன்னோவேட் பண்ணி போகாமல் அப்படியே அதுலேயே உட்காந்துருந்தோம்னா we will not be successful. First is product. 3 things ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட்: குவாலிட்டி, காஸ்ட் அண்ட் ஸ்பீடு. இந்த 3 இல்லைன்னா பிஸ்னஸே பண்ண முடியாது. குவாலிட்டி இல்லாமல் இருந்தீங்கன்னா நீங்கள் எந்திரிச்சு நிற்கவே முடியாது. குவாலிட்டி இஸ் மஸ்ட். அண்ட் குவாலிட்டி அட் அ காஸ்ட்லியர் தென் த காம்படிட்டர் you will not be successful. A better quality at a cheaper cost only will make you very powerful. Otherwise you will survive. You will not become the leader. So quality best, affordable cost, speed. Order 20 நாள் somebody should not be waiting for it. So quality, cost and speed are the most important. Very often what goes wrong is pricing. என்ன ரேட் வைக்கிறது நம்ம ப்ராடக்ட்டுக்கு, அங்கே தான் வெரி ஆஃபன் என்டர்பிரனர்ஸ் கோ ராங். குறைவான ப்ரைஸ் வச்சா ப்ராஃபிட் வராதுன்னு நினச்சிட்டு நிறைவான ப்ரைஸ் வச்சா டர்ன் ஓவரே வராது. ஹலோ, குறைவான ப்ராஃபிட் இருந்தாலும் பிஸ்னஸ் பண்ணிடலாம், ஆனால் டர்ன் ஓவரே இல்லாமல் பிஸ்னஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. ஸோ கீப் த ப்ரைஸ் as low as possible, because in the entire world there is no single company closed down because they have priced it low. ஸோ அது ரொம்ப முக்கியம், ப்ரைஸிங். டெக்னாலஜி இல்லாமல் எந்த பிஸ்னஸும் ஸ்கேல் அப் பண்ண முடியாது. ஐடி, ஐ திங்க் டுடே தமிழ்நாடு இஸ் cruising because the most powerful strength of Tamil Nadu is the information technology strength. So IT இல்லாமல், டெக்னாலஜி இல்லாமல் you can't scale up any business, you can't even grow up. In fact, you can't even start up. So IT is most important. The second one is team, HR. I think Tamil Nadu has got wonderful team, wonderful HR. Worldwide Tamil people are succeeding. So I don't think Tamil Nadu should worry about IT, HR, logistics. I think yesterday presentation was telling 6 airports are there, so many seaports are there. I think we are blessed with IT, HR, logistics. இந்த 3 இருந்த போதும் ஜெயிக்காம எங்கேயுமே தவறக்கு சான்ஸே கிடையாது. There is a Hindi punchline I am scared to tell in Tamil Nadu, but it's a very simple punchline. Scale nahi to kale nahi. If there is no scale, there is no game. So you have to scale up. The population of Tamil Nadu is 10 crores. Population of India is 150 crores. And we Tamilians think our market is only 10 crores. Please note, Nilagiri is not the limit of our market. It is the Himalayas which is the limit. Please scale up all over the country. Please don't take funding for startup. Worrying? Yes, you need funding for scale up. You need your own funding to start up, and you go for a funding for scale up, because very important is scaling. You should not do before you have a good profitable unit model. So then you can scale up. Then funding comes, then branding comes, because without branding you will not have a value. And funding is never free. Keep in your mind, if you go and pitch to an investor, your value is half. If the investor is coming and pitching in front of you, the value is double. So you wait until an investor comes and pitch to you. Don't be in a hurry, you will not get a good valuation. Marketing is everything, gentlemen. You have the best product, most affordable pricing, and you have capability to manufacture. But if you don't get enough orders, if you don't get enough of attention, you cannot succeed in business. Please note, marketing is ultimate and it has to be purely focused on. Customer consciousness. Again, I said to you, nowadays customer is very, very highly over-expecting customer. You have to not only meet his expectation, you have to exceed his expectation, otherwise you won't be able to grow. Competition. Is there any competition? Hello? According to me, competition is not there. கல் என்று பார்த்தால் கடவுள் தெரியாது, கடவுள் என்று பார்த்தால் கல் தெரியாது. ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டின்னு பார்த்துட்டிங்கன்னா காம்படிஷன் கண்ணுக்கு தெரியாது, காம்படிஷன்னு பார்த்துட்டிங்கன்னா ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டியே கண்ணுக்கு தெரியாது. ஸோ தேர் இஸ் நோ காம்படிஷன். Must tell you, for you to do business, cost price, selling price are important, because selling price minus cost price is your margin. Is that clear? For an investor, buying price and selling price of the share is important. And if you don't give him a good exit, a good value, if you don't pay him a good dividend, he will not come and invest in you. Please keep in your mind, investor is ultimately very important and you need to give him returns and exit. As I said, in Startup Tamila, I will be present and all will teach you what to do, and I will certainly tell you what not to do, and I will be very happy if you understand what not to do, because then you won't fail. How big you will go depends upon what you can do. But if you know what a few things you should not do, you will never fail. Let me tell you, focus is everything in life. There are only two kinds of entrepreneurs, one who is successful, other did not focus. Please remember, the focus is the ultimate word. Frugality, no show off. Be crisp. Take money, don't spend. Take money and invest. If you don't know the difference between spending and investments, you probably will never succeed. Be frugal, be powerful. Discipline is everything. There are many guys who think that 9 to 5 I hate. Let me start business. Business is not 9 to 5, it is 7 to 11. 7 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock in the evening. And business is discipline. If you are disciplined, you will be the most powerful person. The major difference between two companies, one successful, other not, in the same industry is only discipline. Please note, discipline is ultimately important. The next question comes, at what age I should be successful? Let me tell you, there is a punch of mine. Never try to become a father-in-law, never try to become a billionaire before you meet your father-in-law. But you must become a billionaire before you meet your son-in-law, which says you should be a billionaire when you are 50 plus, not too early. Success, yes, success is never a problem. Sustaining the success is the biggest problem. There are plenty of companies, MSMEs, who have reached 10 crore, 25 crore. Subsequently, they have not grown further because they were not worried about the sustainability of the success. Please keep sustained success. Let me tell you another punchline. Consumers cannot create. Hello. Consumers cannot create. So creators should not be consumers. So very often people who see a small fortune will become a victim of their own creation, and they are least likely to grow. Happiness. I think ultimate life goal is not to become billionaire. Ultimate life goal is to be happier. And let me tell you, if you are already not happy, you can't become richer. Only happy people can become richer. And I want you to understand, first is happiness, then money comes, and then success amplifies happiness. And I wanted to tell the minister and the secretary, startup Tamil Nadu is one aspect of growing economy of the business. We must have grow up TN, which means all those who are in 50 crores should add a zero. That is another aspect of grow up. And then scale up, where even a 500 crore can become 5,000 crore. All the three cannot be under the same umbrella. You need to create three parallel disciplines. Thank you very much, Startup Tamil Nadu, for inviting me. And I am quite surprised by the size and the scale and the grandeur in which the global investor summit Tamil Nadu has been. Congratulations to all of you. Keep learning, keep growing, keep enjoying. Thank you very much.
So coming up next is a panel discussion. We are privileged to host a distinguished panel of experts who will be exploring on the startup investments. So we have 6 investment experts who will be joining with us for the panel, which will be focusing on the startup investments. So it's my honor to introduce the moderator and the panelists for the discussions, Mr. Krishna Chaitanya sir, and Mr. Venkat Vallabhaneni, Managing Partner, Inflexia Ventures, will be the panelists. So I now humbly welcome our Krishna Chaitanya sir to the dais. I humbly request our panelists to take over the dais, please. Over to Krishna Chaitanya sir to take forward the discussions, please.
Welcome to this discussion on the emerging trends in the VC space and the investment strategies which go along with it. So we have a distinguished panel here. We have leaders in the respective space from the various funds. So before we start, maybe we'll get a bit of a context as to where the global trends are going. So some of the things that are happening is there is in the global venture capital space, of course, it will be very difficult for us to go to statistics on the venture capital space because the definition of venture capital varies. And but having said that, the emphasis has been more on sustainability, on clean tech, on artificial intelligence, and some of the disruptive technologies. Uh, while some of the trends which have been happening is that the VC investments have gone down in terms of both value as well as volume compared to 2021 and 2022 and 2023. In India, we have also had some reduction in the size, the deal size, as well as the number of deals which have happened. But that being said, we'll just get that as the context. And we'll still have to give it to India and other emerging economies that the emerging market VCs have actually performed better than the global VCs. Or the US and the developed market VCs. So that being said, we just want to go around the panelists and let them have a very quick take about what are the two major sectors and the two major trends that they see in the Indian venture capital space. We'll possibly start maybe from the right to left. And we'll go with a quick take on what would be the two major sectors and the two major trends that they see in the Indian VC space. Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Chaitanya, thanks for asking this question. I mean, look, I am a sector-focused fund. I invest in food and agri sector. So, I mean, that's one thing what we believe is working well. But if I take a broader look around it, I think there is a need of a lot of working capital or financing support for the entire country and the SMEs. So that's financial inclusion is something which I think is going to work well. And I think the way the world is moving, the climate is changing. We think a lot of impact around climate. So climate-related technologies or solution is something which is going to work well. I mean, that's what I'll take.
Hari?
Jinesh copied my answer. So, fintech and lending, and probably I'll add software in lending that can sort of ease credit underwriting, collections, etc. So, a marriage of SaaS and fintech and lending. I think that's something that India can be a leader, and it can even be exported to the other countries. And decarbonization, again, the global warming, climate change, decarbonization. So these two I would probably call out as big trends. Obviously, AI will be part of both these sort of applications.
அனைவருக்கும் மதிய வணக்கம். How much time I have got for this question?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. So, globally, lots of things happening. One big thing is the inflation, interest rate have peaked. So possibly, I think you will have interest rate cycle coming down, which means riskier assets would be chased. So the private markets could do well. So that's one in terms of bigger trend. A couple of things in terms of sectors. So we are not a very sector agnostic, but we are a sector agnostic. But I would personally be keen in terms of space and then the defense side. Thank you.
Hi. Let me start by saying that there's VC industry has been slow this year, but last year I mean, but this is the best time to start any venture into startup area in my view, right? So it's going to recover probably later part of next year in our view, and so it's going to go up from there, right? As far as the sectors are concerned, we divide that into two different sectors: mainstream sectors and deep tech sectors. In the mainstream sectors, we focus on consumer tech, probably healthcare tech, fintech, and logistics are the sectors we focus on. And AI, artificial intelligence, with whether it's Gen AI or otherwise, it's going to be the focus, and it will move into mainstream as well. And as far as the deep tech is concerned, one is material sciences is something we look at, and space tech, and healthcare, especially on the biotech, biopharma side of it, is something which are very, very interesting to us as well.
Thank you. Parag?
So we are on our fourth fund, and traditionally what we have done is basically consumer internet and software as a service. In the last 5 years, I would say, maybe even less, deep tech is an area which, as Venkat mentioned, is getting more and more focus. So things like space we have done our robotics company, we have done a augmented reality, virtual reality kind of a company, electric vehicles. So those kind of areas where it is not just software, software adds to the hardware or the sensors underlying that, and they are getting commoditized, but software adds value. That's where we see the potential going forth.
Thanks. So, Venkat, we see from your portfolio, from your website, that you have straddled across different sectors, from artificial intelligence to consumer tech to health tech to ed tech, and the tech seems to be the common suffix or the second part of the word, but there are the prefix is a sector in itself. So when you evaluate So how is it that what are the top 2, 3 areas that you want to look at? I mean, because most of the audience, I think, would be either some of the entrepreneurs or angel investors or something. I think that would be helpful.
Sure. So we are technology-focused fund. We are sector agnostic. So there's no doubt in our mind, technology will propel the growth for India in the future. That's given. So technology cannot stand by itself. You need to have either technology-enabled, technology-driven businesses as well. But when you start the company, you can look at 2 ways, in my view, 3 ways actually. You can go horizontal technologies. Prime example would be Postman's and browser stacks, which achieved a lot of growth, right? They focus primarily technology itself. Then you have the vertical solutions where you use the technology enabling businesses, whether logistics or something else, right? Where you focus on verticals. And then there's a middle ground where you start with the horizontal and then figure out some solutions to, you can start in probably, I'll give an example. We invested in a company called Secure Things. They are IoT security, but they're focusing on automobiles to start with. If they see enough growth, you can achieve the growth in one particular segment, stick to that, you become vertical solution, but you can go across different verticals as well. But all said and done, what do we look for? 3 things: team, TAM, and conviction. That's it, right? TAM is total addressable market. Team is a focus for us. And then finally, we got to have the conviction, and the entrepreneur, they got to have the conviction as well, what they're doing. We look for those 3.
So thanks, Venkat. That's been really insightful. I think the team, TAM, and conviction. I think that's really insightful. Coming back to you, Parag. I mean, the latest buzzwords, or not really the buzzwords, but avoidable words in the VC space that we hear about are the number of mega rounds which have reduced. I mean, you have been part of some of the mega rounds in your previous funds and previous investments. The other one is about down rounds, the mega rounds and down rounds, which gets us to the question of the valuation versus value. Considering that most of the trends talk about how down rounds could be there or secondaries could be there in the VC space. So what's your view? How does that impact India, or do you think it would impact India? So
if you want to put money behind a business into equity, put it in your own company, right? So that's generally how we look at it, and that's our institutional view.
Thanks for your use, Hari. I think it is a good, if I may say, a message to some of the entrepreneurs who are here, because people have multiple ideas. Coming back to you, Jinesh, from being multipreneurs, as we said, to focus. And one of the trends that Forbes had predicted in their 2024 VC report is the rise of hyper specialists hyper specialist VCs. So you seem to be fitting that in some sense, maybe along with Hari, where you focus on a particular sector. Just wanted your take on how this would really help, and whether being whether this is something that possibly means that you might lose some opportunities, or whether this means that you get better deal flow.
Look, I think we will miss some opportunities for sure. I don't think we can win all the games. So we are very happy with what we are doing. Look, as a team, we can focus on one or two sectors, what we can add value. I think we have chosen food and agri as a sector where we can add value. So entrepreneurs who want to do food and agri business, I think we add more value. We understand the sector more than any other VCs would know. Uh, so that's how it works out, right? So people who want to focus the business or make the decision to make investment in food and agri sector, they would come to us. People who want to do something different, they would go to other VCs. But I think generally all VCs would try to pick up one or two areas where they are strong and then try to be opportunistic to figure out if they can get something on the way. But we have chosen to just to focus on food and agri. I think the advantage is that we can, within the food and agri space, if any entrepreneur needs any help reaching out to any large corporate or to any regulatory bodies or to the governments, I think few phone calls and few networks we can make that connect, get that right. Within the portfolio itself, there is so much of synergies that you can create businesses, add value without incurring the cost which any other people would have done it, right? So that's how we do around it, right? Is there good or bad? I don't know. It's a choice we have taken, right? I mean, and what are the repercussions or results are, we will take with what it comes.
So you believe that the deal flow would still be there despite your
Look, I mean,
hyper specialization?
look, India probably has like 30,000-40,000 entrepreneurs coming every year. I don't know, the number keeps on going up in the government database. Uh, I think in the agri sector, it's a sector keeps on growing. Around 10 to 15% of total entrepreneurs are related in the agri sector. So if I were to do 5 or 10 investments a year, I can do it without much sweat, right? I mean, I'll get every year 300-400 deals coming. I might have to do 5-6 investments, so we are good. But if I were to do 50 transactions in the one sector, maybe that would have been tough. So that's yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jinesh. Coming back to you, Bala, I think you have straddled, or you are straddling across seed, growth, and private credit, venture credit. And you had one series of funds closing, and you are fundraising. I think you are currently doing a multiple fundraise if the market is right. And coming back, to the elephant in the room, which is the funding winter, that another term that I have picked up recently, and which is being repeated over and over again. How do you feel? Again, the context is that while the funding winter, so to say, has been there for some of the other funds, the emerging markets funds and especially India-specific funds have seen good traction. So, what is your view on this fundraising, and how does this affect, if the funding winter is actually there? How would it affect our ability? When I say our ability, the VC sector in investing in the various startups in terms of the deal flow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think let me try and answer the best possible way. I think you've got multiple questions within that. First, the idea is to become Chennai headquartered, good asset management company which can straddle across all. Okay, so I think Shiva would be pleased if I can say it would be a Dravidian model of AMC. Okay, in the sense like you would be there everywhere, but 90% of it would be focused on South. In fact, almost 70-80% of our portfolio companies come out of South. I think there is a reason for that. Let's say southern states have done well historically, and each one is driving them madly to compete. So I'm sure in some time there would be a 3-4 trillion kind of economy between only the southern states, and we could be a player who could speak the local language. I'm sure, I think that would give a value out of it. So I think that's one. As I said again, I think it's not a venture debt. It's a private credit, which is little larger size. So I think that's about what we are thinking in Aniket. So that's one part of the story. In terms of funding winter, these are jargons borrowed from Western, Ps and VCs, which I'm not used to it. I used to be a commercial banker, but I can tell you one thing. What happened in commercial banking, which is like 20 years back, 25 years back. If you asked a young banker like where do you want to work for, I think he would have said Citibank. And today, for all practical sense, Citibank doesn't exist in the space which they've created in this country. I hope to, not I hope, I think that could happen to some of these like large guys who are parachuting from, outside of the country and coming here and doing business. I think it has happened in trickles, and I'm sure like it will only accelerate, which means like more and more Indian fund managers, domestic money would come in. From a domestic side, you've got a transfer of intergenerational wealth. And there is a man who's sitting here who just took a large exit. I'm sure like that money is not going to go idle. He's going to look for good fund managers to put it back, which is like, I think by itself like is a large money. So I think, the capital which is going to come like from a domestic side, both from institutions as well as like I think from investors like Mr. Velumani, it's going to be pretty large. So you would have like, periods of like, I think this so-called funding winter, but as Parag said, like, on the early stage, it's still active, and Series A stage, like I think people took a little bit of backseat, but I think it'll come back again. But as long as we grow at 7.5%, 8%, and when, states compete with each other to grow faster, and like we'll be able to be supply the capital, I think good times are ahead. Even SME IPOs have done well. Like I think a couple of our angel companies, we could go unlisted there, get exits. So I think it will make domestic managers more active. This is what we feel. I don't know whether I've answered the question, but I just thought I'll just give you a context of like what we think from an Aniket side and how we are wanting to build this institution. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Bala. I think we are running short of time, but we'll have just one very quick rapid fire round. I'll possibly start with Venkat. So you have told about your interest in deep tech and the problem solving, and considering that we are at Jim here and Tamil Nadu more specifically, what do you want the entrepreneurs in? What do you want to look for in terms of the deals from entrepreneurs in Tamil Nadu? A very quick take, please.
Sure. So we invest 40% of our fund in deep tech and 40% in the enterprise and rest in growth. So as far as deep tech is concerned, space, healthcare, which is basically biotech side of it, material sciences, as I said, these are 3-4 sectors we look for. But I know we invest anywhere from 3 to 5 crores to start with and stay with the entrepreneur up till 50 crores, right? So that's how we do it. We believe Tamil Nadu has got a lot of deep tech talent, which we are trying hard for last 2 years to reach out to the entrepreneurs, not able to get traction, to be honest, right? So where we need help is, connections, right, to the entrepreneurs, and the government helping us to get touch base with the local incubators, and how do I do that? Entrepreneurs reaching out to us. We believe there's a lot of potential in Tamil Nadu, so help us out there in terms of that. Right?
Yeah, thanks. I think for all the entrepreneurs here in that space, you know who to connect with, somebody who is keen to do deals. Very quickly, moving to you, Jinesh, a similar question. In your space, how do you view Tamil Nadu?
I think Tamil Nadu is a great place. I mean, the state is facing a climate change, so I'm sure the entrepreneurs here would try to figure out how to cope with that. At the same time, there's a lot of engineering as well as science-based talent, which generally is going out of the country. So maybe people can here and focus on life sciences solutions and focus on climate solutions. At the same time, trying to use the experience what TN has got it in way how they have grown and work with the other states also. That could be a great leverage. That's how I would look around it.
Thanks, Jinesh. I think we have some biotech parks and some life sciences parks here, which we should get you connected with. Parag, similar question. What has been your experience with Tamil Nadu-based investments, and what do you want to really look at there?
So SaaS, obviously, given Zoho and others here, that's an obvious one. What I would say is, if we are to grow as a country, I think manufacturing can't be 17% of our GDP. This state is doing well, 22%, but even 22% is not good enough, and Tamil Nadu is the leader, so probably it can show that. All everything that we see today is not a straight widget manufacturing. It is multidisciplinary in nature, and manufacturing in particular is going to, the overlap of technology and manufacturing is going to see a lot of investments. Robotics, we have a company called Lati, for instance. Most of the customers would be here. More customers would be here than in Bangalore, for instance, which I have an obvious weakness for. But the truth is that Chennai is much better at it. So I think we will see, especially in some of those involved segments in deep tech and what IIT Madras is doing, for example, Professor Chakravarti, for instance. This is leading edge work. So that is what Tamil Nadu, and it is a much better governed state than ours is, honestly. so I would say that.
Thanks, Parag. Look forward to you being in news releases with some of your investments in the near future in Tamil Nadu. Thank you. Bala, this one's for you. You said that you are really looking at something to do with the where the strength of Tamil Nadu is, or like it is pointed out, 22% of the state's GSDP comes from the industry. So you seem to have some interest there. Just a very quick revert on that.
I'm the local boy here, am I right? We have close to about 18 investments in Tamil Nadu. And just to give you a fact on manufacturing, the number of CNC machines in the country, I think if you look at a concentrated pocket, it would be high in Chennai. Probably next to Pune or next to NCR, we would be the highest. So I think if you want to fabricate anything, you can do it in Chennai or Tamil Nadu. And that's one of the reasons why you've got Agnicool, E-Plane, like all of this is like, I think, one of our first investments. If you need to fabricate something to set it up, like I think you need to be in Chennai. Even Chandrayaan had best of parts coming from Coimbatore. So I think we use manufacturing tech, we have few investments. Consumer companies. I also see defense corridor, which is announced by the central government, and it's really picked up by the state government. I think we've just done 2 defense startups. I think we have been sponsors of the defense expos in Chennai. Defense, I think I see it as a big opportunity. Engineering services, like the state is known for auto engineering services, like we have picked up in other engineering services. Need not be restricted to the country. It could be even exported. I think we've got a lovely young boy like who's going to do solar-based engineering services to US and rest. I think we are more signed up. I think should happen in a week or 2. So I think we think SaaS is like very on the higher side, which we don't understand as a firm. But there are areas in which we understand, which we think it's a local, play for the Tamil Nadu industry. So where we would continue to do a lot more in the years to come. So that's how we are planning ourselves. Where there is lesser traveled and where there is a local flavor, I think we would continue to be there.
Thanks, Bala. I think that's good to hear. Coming back to you, Hari, in your space, the same question. Again, with the fintech sector, people saying that whatever had to be done has already been done. So in Tamil Nadu especially, do you see some opportunities, and how do you really see them, and what can we expect from you in, let's say, 2024?
No, definitely. I think a lot of good things, foundations are there already in Tamil Nadu. For example, Equitas as a bank in our portfolio became public listed. We see M2P, which is a fintech SaaS company, again leveraging SaaS talent of Tamil Nadu and Chennai. M2P is a leading fintech infra company that's powering a lot of banks in the country and globally as well. So I think this trend can continue in cutting edge areas, more like blockchain, etc. You can leverage both the fintech and SaaS talent and go in there. And one more trend I'm looking forward from Chennai or Tamil Nadu is more of EV, given that automobile has been a sort of a very success story and a lot of talent here. Naturally, EV could be leveraged from the state as well.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I think owing to the paucity of time, we need to really end it here. But Jinesh, we did. Yeah. So Thanks for this. Now the audience knows who to corner after the end of this session. Unfortunately, we can't take the Q&A, but I think you know who to corner and to get the answers from. Thank you. It's been a lovely panel. I wish to thank all of you for the same. Thank you. Please give a big round of applause.